You don't board a flight across the ocean without reason. Last Saturday, June 21st, 2025, elite Gardee detectives landed in Waldo County, Maine, driven by one question: who is Michael Kelley? This American drifter is their only real lead in the brutal murder of Kerry farmer Michael Gaine. Their destination wasn't a crime scene. It was the quiet home of Alicia Snow, Kelly's former partner. Snow agreed to meet them. No drama, no tears, just questions. She spoke calmly, but what she revealed was anything but. She described Kelly as a true homesteader built like a workhorse, skilled as a butcher, handyman, and farmer. But along with that rugged self-reliance, she hinted at something else: an air of control, sudden anger, a man who seemed calm until he wasn't. Imagine a man who can slaughter livestock 1 minute, then flip in an instant, the emotional equivalent of a calm sea hiding a tsunami beneath. Gardee didn't come to Waldo County for tales. They came to build a portrait of the man now entwined with a murder case across continents. And what they learned in that basement living room, well, that's where the real story begins. The conversation with Alicia Snow opened the door, but what Gardee found next slammed it wide open. After speaking with her on June 21st, the detectives dug into Olda's records, and what surfaced was more than just background. It was a red flag planted in legal stone. In the year 2009, during a custody dispute between Alicia Snow and Michael Kelley, a Maine family court judge delivered a chilling verdict. Not about violence, not about property, but about Kelley's mind. The court labeled him untrustworthy. It documented how he had made false accusations, including bizarre claims that Alicia practiced witchcraft on their children. The judge didn't mince words. Michael Kelley's ability to determine fact from fiction is questionable. Let that sink in. More than 15 years before a man's remains were discovered in a slurry tank in Kerry, a judge had already questioned whether Michael Kelley could separate reality from delusion. This wasn't rumor. This wasn't speculation. This was on paper, signed, dated, and backed by sworn testimony. And to Gardee, it meant one thing: they were no longer dealing with just a suspect. They were dealing with a man whose past warned them to look deeper. For weeks, the Michael Gaine investigation felt like walking through fog, a murder without a clear motive, a suspect with no criminal record in Ireland, and a community frozen in disbelief. But now, after that trip to Maine, the pieces are starting to click. Gardee didn't come back with blood-stained evidence or hidden weapons, but they returned with something far more dangerous in a cold case: a profile. They now know that Michael Kelley isn't just eccentric. He's been called manipulative by a judge. He's made provably false accusations strange, disturbing ones, and blamed others for things that never happened. That custody case, it's not just background noise anymore. It shows a pattern of control, of paranoia, and of a man who twists narratives when the walls start to close in. And now that pattern is being compared piece by piece with everything Gardee have gathered in Kerry. The timing of Michael Gaine's disappearance, the behavior of Kelley in the days afterward, the items recovered from the farm, including a chainsaw, heavy-duty cleaner, and disturbed earth. This isn't just a murder investigation anymore. It's turning into a psychological dissection of a man who may have been breaking long before anyone died. Even with this new momentum, there's one thing Gardee know better than anyone: a gut feeling doesn't win in court. They have a disturbing backstory. They have behavioral red flags. They have a suspect with a history of delusions and manipulation. But what they don't have not yet is the final link. No murder weapon has been confirmed. No witness has placed Michael Kelley directly at the scene of the crime when it happened, and despite digging through the slurry tank sheds and fields, the full picture of how Michael Gaine died still isn't complete. Even the trip to Maine, powerful as it was, didn't give them a confession or a smoking gun. And Alicia Snow. She's not a suspect. She didn't point the finger. She offered perspective, not proof. That's what makes this part of the investigation so delicate, because Gardee are working in the space between what they know and what they can prove. And in that space, every move matters, every word spoken, every detail rechecked. They're building a case, not rushing it, and they know the difference between a story that makes sense and one that can stand in front of a jury. Now that Gardee have this critical background from the United States, the entire pace and direction of the investigation is shifting. They're no longer dealing with the unknown. They're dealing with a man who's been legally branded as unreliable, with documented behavior that leans toward the paranoid and obsessive. That matters because now every piece of evidence in the Irish investigation can be reevaluated through a new lens: intent. So what's next? First, Gardee will likely move to cross-reference everything Alicia Snow said with the forensic timeline in Ireland. Every phone record, financial transaction, and security camera within a 20-kilometer radius of the Gaine farm, it's all back on the table. They'll compare Kelley's current version of events with what he told police in May. Any contradiction, any shift in phrasing, any inconsistency, no matter how small, will be noted. Why? Because they're now operating under a theory that this is someone who has lied before, boldly and under oath. Second, forensic analysis is still ongoing. Among the most critical items, a chainsaw seized from the property and containers of what investigators believe were industrial cleaning agents. If DNA or tissue is found, that changes the case overnight. But even if it's not, the presence of those items alone, so soon after a man went missing, is suspicious and potentially circumstantial ammunition in a courtroom. Third, Gardee are likely consulting with psychological profilers, not just to understand who Michael Kelley was, but to figure out how to break him down. People with delusional tendencies often reveal more in follow-up interviews than the first round. This time, with the Maine court ruling in their pocket, they'll press harder, go deeper, and call out the lies when they happen. And then there's the international angle. Now that they've stepped onto US soil, Gardee have opened the door to ongoing collaboration with American authorities. That means more records, more access, possibly sealed files or health records that could become available under the right legal request. This is no longer just a Kerry story. It's no longer just a rural tragedy. This is an international manhunt for the truth, one that spans decades, borders, and a growing stack of red flags. And for the first time since Michael Gaine vanished, it feels like something big is coming. Back in Kerry, word is spreading. People know something's changed. At first, the village whispered about a disappearance. Then it became a murder. Then an arrest. But now it's something else entirely. Because when Gardee go all the way to America, the message is loud and clear. This isn't over, and someone is lying. Michael Kelley may have walked free in May after 24 hours in custody, but that was before the US court records, before the forensic results, before Alicia Snow told them about his temper, his controlling ways, his history. And while no charges have been filed yet, the pressure on Kelley is rising fast. He knows Gardee are looking at him differently now, not as just a tenant or a witness, but as a man with two lives, one in Maine, one in Kerry, and both carrying the weight of suspicion. Behind the scenes, investigators are pushing harder. Quiet conversations with neighbors, reanalysis of digital data, phone calls to legal advisors on both sides of the ocean. And the media, they're circling again. What was once a local headline has now caught national and international attention. Irish papers, as true crime outlets, even forums are lighting up, asking the same question. Why hasn't he been charged yet? But Gardee know this is where mistakes get made, so they're playing the long game. Quietly, methodically, they're tightening the net, not with noise, but with evidence. And when they move again, it won't be for a conversation. It'll be for a case file, a warrant, and possibly the start of justice. This case began with silence, a missing farmer, an empty house, a slurry tank that no one wanted to look too closely at. For weeks, it felt like the investigation into Michael Gaine's disappearance was drifting until the smell led them to the truth. And now it's no longer a mystery, it's a murder. But what happened after that discovery has reshaped everything. When Gardee flew to Maine on June 21st, they weren't chasing rumors, they were chasing the character of a man. And what they brought back wasn't physical evidence, it was psychological ammunition. They now know Michael Kelley has a documented history of falsehoods, control, and mental instability. They know he lived with Gaine. They know he was on the farm when Gaine vanished. They know he was there when the slurry tank began to fill with more than just waste. And yet, he walks free. But that freedom feels temporary, because what Gardee have now is something most cold cases never get. A map of the suspect's mind written in legal ink years before the crime. They have a timeline, a motive under pressure, and a web of behavior that stretches from a custody hearing in Maine to a body dumped in County Kerry. They've built the profile, they're connecting the patterns, and now they're watching. This investigation isn't stuck, it's loading. And when the next move comes, when Gardee knock on that door again, they'll come not with suspicion, but with proof.